TPR.
Had one rock album back in the day, self-produced. फराद हैदर मैंने टाइप किया तो दुनिया का हर फराद हैदर आ गया except for who we're looking for. Images.
Faraz Wakar Haider.
Official. Yeah.
Oh wait, I remember this video.
Andher maybe it was, no?
I remember this.
Yeah.
Gana hai Andheri. I remember.
Yeah. So, but then some recently dance karna shuru kar diya. And not recently, but like somewhat. And I was like, ये क्या हुआ? But Pakistan में ये भी है ना कि the shift from अब तो सब electronic music सुनते हैं, तो हम भी electronic music बना लेते हैं, and it's not really as good because heart से नहीं आया ना. It all comes back to.
Are we adding this directly?
What is this? This is pod 209. Yeah, I think so. This is the March episode, right? Yeah, the March episode. We're recording in March, so it counts, even though it comes out in April. And पहले हमने क्या बात की थी इस बारे में? There was expected to be some Ramzan gap. I don't know if that
हमने
happened.
सोचा था कि हम रमजान में पहले करके और फिर पोस्ट ईद निकालेंगे. तो रमजान में तो नहीं हमने ठीक किया अपना स्केड्यूल. अब कोशिश ये है कि ईद में ठीक करेंगे.
हाँ. There's always tomorrow. As long as there's tomorrow, Umeed remains. But yeah, we still have quite a few songs. How many of these songs are new?
Most of them are new, I think. मतलब या February में.
Right. Achha.
So I think like this, we could have released this playlist like first half of March also, but I was just busy. But लेकिन अभी भी बहुत गाने हैं which I haven't been able to get through. Like so what I do is कि वो एक हमनवा की ताज़ा माल playlist है. उसमें जो नया गाना आता है मैं उस पर डालता रहता हूँ. And then selections of that go into this select playlist. तो अगर आप ताज़ा माल playlist देखें तो अभी भी उसमें 30-40 गाने हैं जो अभी sort नहीं हुए, which haven't either made the cut or not made the cut.
Do you think now that there is almost the release schedule is that there is no schedule, but gaane aa rahe hain, like based on whatever internal frequency people might be operating on. So do you think the old Ramzan break thing happens still?
Yeah, 100%.
अच्छा, it still happens.
रमजान में नहीं कुछ निकल रहा. लोग तो पोस्ट भी नहीं करते. Like if you look at even Spotify Pakistan's page, वो भी नहीं पोस्ट करते, artists भी नहीं पोस्ट करते. I think most people don't. There's different opinions, right? Like some people don't consume music even in the month. तो एक तो वो है, दूसरा ये कि focus is so different. And even from a kind of entertainment business standpoint, वो इतना कुछ different हो जाता है landscape एकदम से पाकिस्तानी TVs वगैरह पे कि वो सब change हो जाता है. But I think it's largely like spiritual also. Like people switch focus for a month and then come back. तो फिल्में वगैरह भी नहीं निकलती रमजान में.
Yeah. नहीं, लेकिन what I was wondering was कि perhaps traditional mediums में there are so many more people involved and so structured कि the Ramzan break is like a thing, like movies या old album releases ही वो. But then because आपकी तो things that we might have talked about is that many people don't even have Pakistani audiences, right? So why would they pause unless they themselves are obviously taking a break as well? लेकिन रमजान में गाना रिलीज होने के लिए मतलब ये कि आपने रिकॉर्ड पहले किया था ना. It's not like
I think it's like release schedules are mostly about maximizing your chances of success, right? It's और रमजान में even if your audience is elsewhere, why take the risk? Like if you can do it a few weeks later,
especially
like
if
it's not
you're
really
saying
worth.
people aren't posting, so that really means कि गाना भी नहीं आ रहा, because if you post तो आपने पाकिस्तान में ही करना है ना, not really.
और आप मार्केट भी नहीं कर सकते ना फिर. और कोई ब्रांडेड चीज़ तो निकलेगी नहीं. यानी ये कि nothing will happen with a major brand. Spotify won't market your song.
अच्छा,
मतलब स्पॉटिफाई का इंस्टाग्राम पेज खोलो तो आई डोंट थिंक दे आर पोस्टिंग एनीथिंग रमजान में
a couple
बियॉन्ड.
days ago it seemed to be down. People on Twitter were posting कि Spotify चल नहीं रहा था for like a day or anything.
लोकल सोर्सेज ने मुझे कुछ ऐसी रिपोर्ट दी नहीं, लेकिन मैंने देख
Yeah.
पढ़ा था ट्विटर पे. लेकिन प्रॉब्लम ये है कि अब ट्विटर भी इतना डिस्कनेक्टेड है पाकिस्तान से.
Yeah,
जब वो दिन
yeah,
में आधे घंटे के लिए खुलता है तो एकदम से ट्वीट्स आ जाती हैं, या जो वीपीएन चला रहे हैं.
yeah. Religious themed music, does that come out in Ramzan? Because I saw इस वाली
हाँ.
playlist पे there's like 5-6 गाने हैं from a variety of artists,
या
from like
या
the
सो
Atif
जैन
Aslams
जोहेब,
to the Zain
लाइक
Zohabs. Yeah.
मतलब वो तो कत्ते कवाली हैं तो उनके लिए तो
हाँ.
बड़ा नेचुरल सा फिट है. आतिफ का यूजुअली कोई एक गाना निकलता है मोस्टली ब्रांडेड. अब क्यूबी का भी एक है. सो
QB का आ गया. हाँ.
तो आई थिंक मतलब लोग वो या नात गाएंगे या कोई हम गाएंगे, सो दैट्स प्रीटी कॉमन. एंड आई काइंड ऑफ लाइक इट एक्चुअली. आई थिंक इट्स अ नाइस change of pace, and people like Atif are really good at it. Um, Atif has done quite a
Yeah.
few now, and all of them are very canon, I feel.
Yeah. Didn't Atif have one with Coke Studio? Like a
आतिफ ने
major.
वही खुदा है गाया था ना.
हाँ.
हाँ, तो
That was
इस
a
दफ़ा
huge
वो
thing.
राके जमील, वो जो इनका मुगल फंक है, दे प्लेड लाइक एन इंस्ट्रूमेंटल वर्जन ऑफ इट ऑल्सो. सो वो वही खुदा है बहुत, दैट वाज फेमस. आई डोंट नो इफ इट केम आउट इन रमज़ान, बट आतिफ का
Yeah.
वो मशहूर था. आतिफ सैंग द वो जो गाना था ना, जो इस्लामिक कॉन्फ्रेंस ओआईसी कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई थी, उसका एक गाना था पाकिस्तान में जब
अच्छा.
ओआईसी कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई थी. तो आतिफ रीडिड इट फॉर Olpers, if I'm not wrong.
Let's see if I can find it quickly. I searched for Atif Aslam OIC or Google ने कहा maybe I want Atif Aslam pick.
नहीं, नॉट
PIC कर दिया.
ओआईसी. उसका सर्च होगा.
Atif Aslam OIC International OIC official song foreign ministers foreign
सर्च
office
फॉर
PK
आतिफ असलम ओल्पर्स.
Atif Aslam Olpers कव्वाली नाथ हम मुस्तफ़ी हैं.
हाँ, हम
हम
मुस्तफ़ी,
मुस्तफ़ी
यस.
हैं. अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा. So that was the song for the OIC thing which he did
राइट.
a version of. अच्छा.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's quite good.
But yeah, nahin, definitely is the fucking playlist. I did notice this where there's like 5 to 6 religious theme songs.
And I also made an effort to include them because I think it's like a
Acha.
big part of the scene.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, so like it makes sense to capture it, and so मेरे लिए तो जहाँ जहाँ मुझे मिले भी मैंने कोशिश करके डाले भी प्लेलिस्ट में.
It makes sense because if we're talking about like if we're trying to cover trends in the Pakistani music cultural output scene, this is a definitive section of the year jahan ye to hota hi hai. But then we have a few songs as always selected. तो उनके बारे में जरा हम बात करते हैं कि I was going through it and the first song that stood out as like a new song पहली बात तो ये, and also new as in a new release, a new person I'm not familiar with, and then also a different direction than we have seen was the Landa Bazaar song. Who is this by? अगर हमने जल्दी से जाके देखें तो Landa Bazaar, Oyye Harry.
So
Is this a
my
movie?
understanding is, no, it's not a movie. My understanding is he's a vlogger, and he, as part of his vlogging, he does songs also.
अच्छा.
So there's a kind of 16-minute video about thrifting culture in Pakistan,
60?
in which this song 16.
अच्छा.
तो उसमें एक हिस्सा है ये गाना. So then they released the song independently also. So if you go on his page, you'll see that there is one about like a Honda CD70 के बारे में एक गाना है, and there's a kind of video about it. So it's interesting. There's a very Muru
yes
mold of things.
क्योंकि the question I had about this was why don't we see this more often? क्योंकि एक ज़माना था where it feels like, especially going back all the way back to like rubber band का जो ज़माना था, and then even before, I mean we've always had like parody type comedy type music, but I feel like पहले, or maybe that's just nostalgia vision के मुझे लगता है पहले तो बहुत होते थे, but like Muru definitely had a whole bunch of songs. There was the Alu Ande was like a national phenomenon. And you hear Laddu? You hear the cat yelling? अच्छा क्या कर सकते हैं इस बारे में, बस वहाँ भी घर नहीं आई.
ठीक है, natural part. I think
he's getting louder. The thing is कि नाफरमान बच्चे जो होते हैं ना उसकी भी एक नेक्स्ट लेवल ये है क्योंकि उसको समझ ही नहीं आ रहा कि मैं क्या कह रहा हूँ. एंड you can't even train a cat because I think by principle they have been developed to not learn anything that you try to teach them.
By principle, aren't they hunters? So,
ये रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा है कि प्लीज मुझे मेरा शिकार पेश किया जाए.
do you have cat toys or something in the house?
हाँ हाँ, और he ignores all of them. पता नहीं वो वाला सीन. खैर, so let's come back to the thing. तो what my question was कि हमने इतने सारे we've talked a lot about over the past year and a half कि इतने सारे गाने आ रहे हैं, new artists, new releases, new genres, सब हो रहा है. But in the specific lens that is the monthly Hamnawa playlist that I am exposed to, I don't often see, or I can't even recall the last time I saw somebody who was pure like comedy related. Even this guy you're saying is perhaps a YouTube, like a video first content creator, and part of the thing is his music. So yeah, I find that curious कि क्या पाकिस्तान में humor खत्म हो गया या are people getting into music or people who want to be like serious from the heart musicians कि भाई हम तो rap करेंगे या जो भी करेंगे. um, I don't know why. किसी से पूछना चाहिए हमें. बस आज कल आफ्ताब सही and then suddenly वो entry हो जाए. But yeah,
I
do
think
you think that's
sub.
fair to say?
Yeah, I think it's fair, but थोड़ा सा
Hmm.
वो भी है कि like हमें गाने याद हैं सारे in one go, right? But like how often did they ever show up? Like if we look
Yeah.
historically, like अच्छा जुनून के like जुनून is Ali Azmat is known for this, but Ali Azmat didn't put out a ton of these songs, you know? So like Ali Azmat did Pappu Yaar, or then he did Coke Studio पे बाबू भाई किया था, then he did Bom Phata, you know, like दो तीन है,
Yeah,
but
the Bambata
uh,
is also not out and out comedy, but it has the Ali Azmat vibe in it. But he's
हाँ
talking
अली
about
अजमत
like
का एक वो कोक स्टूडियो 6 पे there's a behind the scenes जिसमें वो कह रहा है कि हमारी म्यूजिक में ये रंगबाजियाँ होती थी जो ख़त्म हो गई हैं. सो इन अ वे लाइक दिस इज़ अ कॉमन ओपिनियन, एवरीबडी फील्स कि ये होता था और अब नहीं है. और पहले क्या कितना होता था, क्या एक्चुअली कम हुआ है या नहीं, आई थिंक इट्स प्रॉबली
yeah.
अ लिटिल बिट एग्जैजरेटेड. लाइक वी रिमेंबर इट एज बीइंग मोर डेंस देन इट वाज. लाइक दिस हैपेंस टू मी अ बंच वेयर लोगों को मैं अब नए गाने सुनाता हूँ ना तो वो कहते हैं नहीं देखो वो स्ट्रिंग्स के गाने थे कितने ज़बरदस्त थे, और अब तो मतलब बहुत इतना कुछ निकल रहा है, क्वालिटी वो नहीं है. एंड आई हैव
हाँ
टू रिमाइंड पीपल कि वो गाने फ्रीक्वेंटली नहीं निकलते थे, यानी वो
हाँ.
निकालते थे 5 साल में 10 गाने, और इस साल अब जो है हर बंदा 1 साल में 10 गाने निकाल रहा है. And so
Yeah.
the volume of output is also kind of crazy. And so we remember like the best bits from 20 years and we're like, oh, amount of cultural output was really high. So I think in part there's a level of that here, but there's other things as well. Like the music scene is now very, everybody's trying to one up each other in terms of quality
Yeah.
of musical output.
Yeah.
तो इतना कोई I think वो, there's not a sense of comedy or kind of non-seriousness. Everybody's trying to be serious, but like the one place where you'd expect something fun to happen would be rap. Like hip hop, may you'd expect there to be kind of, you know, jokiness or lightness, but actually our hip hop is very serious. Like the lightest hip hop
Issues.
is probably Rosio. रोजी और मानू
Rosie
का
was
जैसे
fun.
वेलो पे गाना
Yeah.
निकला था वो स्पाइसी वाला.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there's probably a few people here and there that do kind of, you know, a lighter song. वो बाबर मंगी
Even
वाले एक
in
दो गाने they're kind of
अच्छा.
light spirited. So I think निकलते हैं, but maybe not where the person's whole position is this, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what I'm looking for. Where the aim is comedy, right? तो जैसे इसमें he's, I guess he's talking about Landa Bazaar, but थोड़ा उन्होंने, it's obvious that he's not like a musician first kind of thing. It all
हाँ.
seems to be in the vein of parody. And the examples, if I want to come up with them, are दो या तीन नाम होंगे over like 25 years. तो
वो तो
वही
रबर
वाली
बैंड
बात
में
है.
भी like Ahmed Butt was part of EP, you know, like the most serious of serious music.
Yeah.
हाँ.
हाँ.
And
And Muru is just versatile, I guess. तो उसकी तो Faris also has some comedy bits to him. I think
right.
I think the common thing we have is कि light-hearted vibes हो सकती हैं, but out and out comedy शायद doesn't seem to be a big
And
thing.
political music, I think, is up to like social commentary, maybe, but it's so tied, social commentary and political music. And this is not really an environment where people feel safe making political music. Like, in a way, the last very strong political commentary music came from Begharat Brigade, which is Ali Aftab Saeed, Alu Ande, अब उसने and then Ali Aftab went solo and he did a bunch of songs, but I don't know if anybody else has been as bold as him in terms
Yeah,
of releasing
yeah.
songs like that, and I don't know if it's necessarily the environment where you can.
हाँ, that's the sort of angle that I was also wondering, कि क्या पाकिस्तान में मेन स्ट्रीम पोजीशन में ह्यूमर की फिलहाल जगह नहीं है. Like people don't feel like this is worth doing at the time, or people perhaps just don't feel like, funny. um
Humor की तो है,
YouTube pe
अगर
I
आप टीवी पे
wonder, do
देखें,
we
there's a
have a
lot of
lot,
kind of late
because
night comedy
there is a
shows
lot of like
that are happening. I think they've taken that space.
क्या नाम है, prank
um,
sort of humorous sort of content on like reels या TikTok या
hmm.
ऐसा कुछ. But even on YouTube, everyone's doing a podcast, issues के ऊपर बातें हो रही हैं, serious बातें. And I don't know if people are doing even vlogs as much anymore. Maybe they are. um huh I think this is a new uncle issue for me to have कि यार
One big thing that we're missing
humor
is
चला गया.
अभी मैं कह रहा था, I think we lost connection for a second,
हाँ.
is कि Pakistan TV पे there's a ton of late night comedy shows. ये
Yeah, yeah.
ताबिश जो शो करता है, and then
Hmm.
there's
Older ones like
मजाकरात.
खबरनाक. हाँ.
हाँ, तो वो 2-3 there's like really big comedy shows, and वो जो पंजाबी stage drama lineage 2
Yep.
news talk show, like वो lineage काफ़ी strong है, so that's taken up a lot of the comedy space. और
Hmm.
फिर comedy ये करते हैं लोग सब जो Instagram comedians हैं अब, ये
Yeah.
अब्बास और
Shazad.
अली सुफियान.
Yeah.
So these guys are really big. So maybe it's not happening in the music sphere as much. And I think kind of what you're saying is like, do we make lighthearted music also? But there's a lot of
Yeah.
serious music, perhaps
Yeah.
more serious music than there may have been in the past. It's like
Yeah.
not really a mood जहाँ light-hearted गाने बने. Like 2003 में परवेज
Yeah.
मुशर्रफ era, we were all feeling really good.
Yeah.
मतलब मतलब ये कि उस जमाने
हाँ.
में इंडस म्यूजिक there was a kind of celebratory vibe to
Yeah.
it. अब वो
Yeah.
सिचुएशन नहीं है.
Yeah.
इसलिए वो वाले गाने नहीं बन रहे, थोड़े डार्क वाले गाने बन रहे हैं.
Yeah. I
Generally,
feel
like I
like,
think the situation's a little bit less lighthearted.
yeah, I feel it's not just कि people are making serious music तो मैं भी serious music बनाता हूँ. People might be feeling more serious also. तो वो शायद बात ना आ रही है. Like all the Karachi, like
And
you're
I
talking
think it's
about.
very palpable in on the streets, in people's houses. So this is the
Yeah.
most I've traveled back in a long time. And I go in phases. और फिर जब मैं जाता हूँ तो मुझे हर चंद महीनों बाद डिफरेंस नजर आता है एक in
Right.
people's sort
Right.
of level of optimism and hopefulness. And maybe it's just the people I'm surrounded by, but it feels to me, at least in our generation or our circle of people, mood has dipped
Yeah.
quite a bit.
हाँ.
And there was this sort of obviously like pre-election एक जो थोड़ा ऑप्टिमिज्म इमरान खान से अटैच था, अब वो भी एक हद तक चला गया, so um, it's not really a zone where people come in making light-hearted hopeful music. Like
Yeah.
जो थोड़े jokes हैं वो भी काफ़ी हद तक dark होते हैं, which is not to say none of it exists, but it's just that if you look at the overall tone, it's changed from the early 2000s, and the comedy has been taken up by other people. और music में शायद वो social commentary और politics इतनी नहीं है. It's not as safe to make those same sort of commentaries as it used to be. Like अब आप इतनी आसानी से नहीं कर सकते. And most of the musicians now are also independent. I think that's the other thing to consider. Okay, they don't really have that much to stand on. So
Yeah.
many may not feel as secure or as safe making those commitments. They're not getting like, मतलब आप YouTube पे कुछ डाल देंगे लेकिन कोई आपके साथ खड़ा नहीं होगा if something
Yeah.
goes wrong or something goes
If
haywire.
somebody has an issue with your stance.
Or if you get cancelled, I mean, that's the other thing. Like अब तो एक वो भी है ना social media element, like
Sure.
forget issues of like safety and so forth, but even if one of your opinion goes wrong, so
Huh.
that ruins your entire kind of career trajectory, and do you want to take that risk?
Arguable how far cancellation really goes for people. Like, it is something that people seem to be very aware of. Okay, this is a possibility. And
Right.
interesting that you said all the thing that you go in phases. I felt also okay, because we don't live in Pakistan. तो जब हम जाते हैं हम वक्फे वक्फे के साथ, so it's like every time we visit it's a new episode of the Pakistani story, and we can see कि अच्छा नहीं पहले से ज़्यादा, which if you're living there it might be harder to keep track of from a day-to-day thing. But yeah, Khair, so Oyye Harry has the responsibility of all humorous music in Pakistan as of now. Congratulations. um, yeah, you mentioned two things. One, Jogi. Jogi is not a new song. Jogi is Maanu Talal wala, na?
हाँ, it's what
Haan.
this year though, right?
No, no, I mean, yeah, but it's not like
हाँ,
I feel like, is it February?
I think so, something like that. कुछ हफ्ते हो गए
हाँ
शायद,
चलो मैं
but
तो
हाँ,
मार्च में सोच रहा था नहीं ठीक है it's
हाँ.
fine that's pretty new then great song but why does this stand out for you because there is for me a thing कि हाँ यार मानो और तलाल तो अच्छे गाने बनाएंगे um why does this particularly stand out for you?
I think it's a slightly different sound for
It
Manu.
is, yep.
I think it's also interesting to talk about the use of like kind of vocal effects in this
Mm.
music. Like I think like the Towers Boys or Ye Manu Bhi, up like a lot of
Yep,
people are using vocal effects a lot more.
yep,
Um, uh, I think it's interesting because the way I look at Pakistani music, like if I had to give a recipe for what makes a hit Pakistani song, it's the kind of clear vocal that is very prominent. Right?
right,
Like if I look back at kind of I find very few kind of big hits in Pakistani music where vocal treatment was very heavy. Like
yep,
Upstrings dekh
yep,
lo, ya wo
yep.
purane wale gaane dekh lo, but even kind of new
Huh.
ones like Coke Studio pe, the really big hit songs had kind of clean vocal
Yeah,
treatments.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think Pakistanis respond to kind of clean voices really,
Yeah, I think vocals
really
really
strongly.
can make you stand out. If you're like a talented vocalist, so you can very easily to the point where you might outshine everybody else in the band, in the scene, everything. People just fixate on you, and
कोक
not just
स्टूडियो
in
का
Pakistan, हर
इनिशियल
जगह.
गोल भी यही था ना कि वॉइस पे
Hmm.
करेंगे सब.
Right,
लाइक
band था,
सो
house band था.
हाँ, बट लेकिन
Hmm.
वॉइस पे सब फोकस था. सो आई थिंक दैट्स
Hmm.
एक्चुअली अ काइंड ऑफ इम्पोर्टेंट इनसाइट. सो इन दैट लेंस द यूज ऑफ वोकल इफेक्ट्स इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग, राइट? सो
Yeah,
देन इट्स अ वेरी intentional choice.
yeah.
कि हमने मतलब वोकल इफेक्ट्स को बिल्कुल ही sort of
Hmm.
नॉट नेचुरल तक लेके जाना है कि नेचुरल आवाज़ नहीं है, थोड़ा ट्रीटेड आवाज़ है.
Yep.
एंड आई फाइंड दैट आई टेंड टू गो टुवर्ड्स दो सॉन्ग्स लेस, बट दिस सॉन्ग हिट लाइक एन इंटरेस्टिंग बैलेंस फॉर
Right.
मी.
Because it can almost be like a Instagram filter kind of usage or like a crutch or something. But if if you thread that needle, it can really push the vibe.
The extreme is T-Pain. Na? The T-Pain ने auto tune को अपना वो बना दिया. Yeah,
Yeah.
like this is my
Yeah.
signature. I will use auto
Huh.
tune as a musical element.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's some element like you will use auto tune when people are auto tune gets a bad rap in
Sure.
recording. But let's
Huh.
kind of walk it through. Basically, when you're recording, you make in the recorded sound, you make kind of minor corrections.
Hmm.
Same way,
Hmm.
like अगर जैसे आप photography कर रहे हैं तो आपको कहीं blemish चाहिए थोड़ी सी तो आप Photoshop से
Yeah.
हल्का सा उसको निकालेंगे.
Yeah.
There's no kind of professional issue there. In fact, it's kind of
Morality का
expected.
issue नहीं
And
है. हाँ.
नहीं कोई ऐसा इशू नहीं है. और दूसरा ये कि sort of natural, like लोग राइटिंग करते हैं, आप स्पेल चेक इस्तेमाल करते हैं या
Yeah.
अभी
Yeah.
कोई
Of
AI
course. Of
वाले टूल
course.
इस्तेमाल कर लेंगे. But basically, on the kind of recorded canonical form, it makes sense to kind of fix some of the imperfections because as the song gets replayed over and over, like those imperfections get amplified. And so on the kind of canonical recorded version, you want to do a little bit. तो वो थोड़ा बहुत तो होता ही है. Everybody kind of uses that. Then there's a question of कि क्या आपको गाना ही नहीं आता और आप ऑटो ट्यून इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं जस्ट कि आप
Which
स्केल पे हो
was
लेकिन आप लाइव
early
गाएंगे.
on. हाँ, was a allegation early on in the days कि भाई ये तो मतलब छुपा रहे हैं talent or some people
हाँ,
did push it a bit where it
हाँ,
seemed
मतलब
like there was
शेयर
no
का जो
artistic
बिलीव गाना
merit.
है जिसमें वो 2-3 ऑक्टेव जाती है, लाइक उसमें
Yeah,
उन्होंने काम नहीं इस्तेमाल किया, हमने नहीं इस्तेमाल किया, बाद में पता चला कि इस्तेमाल किया, एंड दैट बिकेम अ
yeah,
काइंड ऑफ कंट्रोवर्सी. बट देयर इज अ सेक्शन के भाई आपको गाना आता ही नहीं और आपने ऑटो ट्यून इस्तेमाल करके रिकॉर्डिंग तो बना दी लेकिन आप लाइव गाएंगे तो सब
yeah.
तितर बितर हो जाएगा. आई डोंट थिंक दैट्स एक्चुअली दैट मच ऑफ अ कंसर्न राइट नाउ. लाइक ऐसा नहीं है कि लोग गाने बना रहे हैं जो वो गा ही नहीं सकते. पीपल कैन यूज इट बट it's not really for me, that's not relevant. So for me what's
Mm-hmm.
relevant is कि आप गा सकते हैं but you use auto tune as a way of kind of stylistically changing your voice, right? It can come from like either you prefer you don't want your natural voice to be out there, you're not comfortable with it, or it's a kind of very stylistic choice.
Yeah,
So it's kind of interesting use for me, especially given that my read of the kind of Pakistani music space is that the natural voice goes really far.
that's
Like
the
आप
king.
सारे
Yeah,
अवामी गाने देखें,
yeah,
फिल्मी गाने देखें, even Bollywood, like
yeah.
the if you want to be like a really big song like Pasudi dekh lo, it's not a, if
Mm.
you imagine Pasudi with this sort of auto tune treatment, I don't know how far it goes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's interesting, but this one struck me as kind of a really good balance
Hmm.
of where you can kind of hear Manu's voice also, but you also hear the kind of stylistic auto tune.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was what was notable for me. The other notable thing is that the wardrobe was done by Hamnawa's own Shamir.
Oh,
So
अच्छा.
hmm,
तो फिर आप, there's a video.
there's a video.
Okay,
So
okay.
I
तो फिर everybody assignment, another homework assignment for everybody, video लाके check करें. But yeah, okay. And then the other thing, the other person that when you mentioned, I was listening to the playlist and I had just come onto the song, was Pameer Yousafzai, another in the long line of our Pashto singer attachments. कि मैंने कहा हाँ ठीक है, great. And then the song starts off, the first song starts off in English. मैंने कहा अच्छा चलो, so he's doing something else. And then it goes into, I suppose, rap, and I was like, oh, ये भी हो रहा है. And actually बिल्कुल मुझे समझ नहीं आया. And in this, weirdly, more than when who's the other guy we like? नाम नहीं मुझे
Zahur.
याद रहते. Zahur. Zahur. More than when Zahur does. When Zahur does, we say we don't need the lyrics. मतलब ठीक है, हमें समझ नहीं आ रहा, but you know, we're getting the vibe. इसमें, weirdly, it was, I think maybe because it was rap, maybe because the vocals were very clear, it was very clear to me कि मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है क्या क्या है. That lack of understanding, because obviously मुझे पता नहीं आता, that was very apparent to me. And yet पूरा गाना मैंने सुन लिया और अगला गाना भी सुन लिया, because there's two songs from this guy. So who is this guy? How'd you come across him?
Lala found him. All of my
Right.
new entrants, as you can see, a
Shout out Lela.
pattern.
Yeah.
Shout out Lala. Lala is finding all of these people.
Yeah.
He's from Swat. I
Okay.
think still early in his career, has a few songs out,
Sure.
but he does Pashto rap. I found मतलब वो जो English वाला हिस्सा था, that was
Hmm.
I think rare. Like most of his music is so straight up Pashto,
Yeah.
and he does kind of very straight rap. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
hard like kind of Karachi rappers, but it seems to be very kind of word based, very vibe based. So I really enjoyed it. I think it's like after Zahur, I'm looking at kind of all the new people that we found. Like कुछ पुराने लोग हैं जो पश्तो में गाते हैं जिनका हमें पता है, यासिर जवाद और um, वो साजिद and Zishan वाला जो पूरा crew है. But
Yeah.
this I think is like from the sort of new people. He sort of stood out to me as kind of a different Pashto sound that I have not heard before. और पिछली दफ़ा हम
Yeah.
बात कर रहे थे कि हम उर्दू के अलावा जो बाकी ज़बानों में भी जो म्यूज़िक ढूंढ रहे हैं, like we can kind of start looking for different styles and new styles are appearing. So this one kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, and I also really, apart from his music, which is great, and you're right, he is pretty new. I think he has 5 releases, which might be singles or albums, and 1200 monthly listeners. And his thing says he's a 20-year-old artist from Swat वगैरह. So clearly, वो खैर 20 is not super young, but what I also really liked,
20 is not super young.
मतलब
Let's
लोग
have
और
a
भी
sidebar
उसमें,
on this topic.
या और भी
कितना
बचपन में
young हो
लोग
सकते हैं
स्टार्ट कर
भाई?
लेते हैं ना, क्या करें अब. व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज कि माय एज कॉम्प्लेक्स फॉर माय 20 नहीं, उससे ज्यादा भी कम उम्र के मैंने लोग देखे हैं हु आर लाइक शिट यार, तो इतनी सी उम्र में
मैं
इतना
अब
कुछ
उस
कर
पॉइंट पे आ
लिया
गया
इसने.
हूँ कि अब कोई स्पोर्ट्स देखते हुए एहसास होता है, "ओह, ये बंदा मेरे से 4 साल छोटा है." मैं इसके
या
इंटरव्यू क्यों सुन रहा हूँ?
या 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 there's so many ये there's so many sidebars. We're sticking to the time thing, but what I also liked was his जो album art जो इसने use किया है, that also really I noticed, because it seems different from the usual. Like एक तो चलो there's a parental advisory वाला, but one is very anime inspired. It might be from an actual anime, इंतजार का जो है, and then यख flow जो है, that has like it's very modern yet retro 80s Japanese type stuff. There's also Japanese text on it. That also really stood out to me more, because like I fully paused when going. Achha, I was like, because पहले तो मैंने गाना नहीं सुना था. I was on a previous song and I looked at the album art and I was like, अच्छा चलो Pameer Yousafzai पश्तो में कोई गाना होगा. Starts off in English. Again I'm thrown. I'm like, क्या हो रहा है ये? And then you also
It's
messaged
actually
at
the
the
thing I
time.
will say about it is that most songs in the playlist, this one like made me pause for a
Yeah,
second,
yeah,
being
yeah.
like ये कुछ
Exactly.
नया है, मतलब मुझे कुछ समझ नहीं आया कि इधर क्या हो रहा है,
Yeah.
which I mean is a compliment in that it's
100%.
not same old. कभी पर आपको नया
हाँ.
गाना मिलता है और आप देखते हैं उसमें क्या चाहिए, वही चीज़ है, ये हमने सुना हुआ पहले, ये पंजाबी में थोड़ा इन्होंने डिफरेंट इलेक्ट्रॉनिक करके आगे ले गए इस तरह करके, but this one
Mm-hmm.
was, I heard it and I was like interesting, समझ कुछ नहीं आ रहा, I desperately looked for a translation, couldn't find it, but still I was like interesting, इधर
Yeah.
कुछ देखने को है. So
Yeah.
that's why it was worth talking about.
Yeah, I mean, shout out. I'm definitely gonna make a clip of this portion of it. Good art, good music, and uh, yeah, man. I was kind of like confused, like, okay, अच्छा ये तो मतलब क्या मतलब बिल्कुल ही कोई अलग चीज है ये. So yeah, very good, Pamir. As uncles, we can say good. At least मैं तो कहता ही रहता हूँ. Um, and then one of the other things that I had was because when I listen to these playlists now, again, because people are very interested in my thought process, जब मैं सुन रहा होता हूँ ना तब usually like commuting या मैं कहीं चल रहा होता हूँ या कुछ हो रहा होता है तो there's a lot of stuff that I'm focusing on at the time कि मैं कहाँ जा रहा हूँ noises ये वो whatever and गाना भी चल रहा है background में तो sometimes there are these like very basic seeming surface level thoughts कि I'm like oh this could be something that this song reminds me of. So one of the songs that you had was by Nirmal Maghani or Maghni, and her song name, if I can find it here,
Koyal.
is Koyal. The Koyal the मैंने सुना and it's the thing I said to Zeerak was, is this what एक ज़माने में जो सेमी क्लासिकल जॉनर होता था नैयरा नूर एंड मेनी अदर पीपल व्हाट आई एसोसिएटेड इन माय बचपन की अंडरस्टैंडिंग वाज कि हाँ जी देयर इज full classical like ghazals and other classical type music, but if you do some of that vocal training but with perhaps थोड़े से modern or western instruments उसको हम semi classical कहते हैं. टीना सानी नैयरा नूर etc. So recently we've had Shumaila a few times. We've talked about her music and she's on this playlist as well. We've talked about how we have trained singers, often female, who are doing songs with modern production, which perhaps might in we're overanalyzing it. Perhaps maybe people don't think as much, but perhaps we'll also say it bridges the gap between something that is too traditional for modern tastes by having that modern production, and then you still bring that lineage and tradition and art of the clearly very trained vocals. तो ये गाना सुन के भी great song Koyal, and also Shamaila is also very good. Is this how popular do you think this is? Because Pakistan mein, there is always, I feel like in people, a lot of, even if they don't talk about the attachment or the value of it, when you do something like this, na, log appreciate bada karte hain because it's like, हाँ जी, ये हमारा old wala culture. Because culture is whatever is happening, but still, this is also hamara culture. And it resonates perhaps more, I feel, anyway. Is that is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of complicated thoughts in here, right? मतलब
Hmm.
जैसे आप गाना सुनते हैं और आपको एहसास होता है कि ये वेस्टर्न वोकल नहीं है, ये ईस्टर्न वोकल है.
Yeah.
व्हाट मेक्स इट एन ईस्टर्न वोकल? उसमें कुछ चीज़ें तो नोट्स क्या हैं, यानी क्या
Yeah,
स्केल है,
yeah.
यानी
The
कुछ
specific
स्केल्स हैं
scales
जो
towards,
ईस्टर्न
हाँ.
म्यूजिक में ज़्यादा इस्तेमाल होती हैं और वेस्टर्न में कम
Right.
होती हैं, ये वाली बात होगी. फिर दूसरी वाली बात ये कि आप आलाप आलाप देते हैं या आप
Hmm.
थोड़ा गुमुर्की देते हैं. सो जिस तरह आप गा रहे हैं वो स्टाइल डिफरेंट है. यानी जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं गोरे लोगों को कभी कवाली सुनाऊँ और उसमें नुसरत अपना वो सरगम गाना शुरू करते हैं, तो देम दैट स्टैंड्स आउट एज लाइक अ काइंड ऑफ
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
डिफाइनिंग फीचर ऑफ दिस इज
हाँ.
समथिंग डिफरेंट. अच्छा, तो वो चीज़ें कुछ आ जाती हैं. एंड देन देयर इज़ अ काइंड ऑफ वोकल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, यानी कि बहुत सारे जो ईस्टर्न जिनको हम गाने समझते हैं वो एक्चुअली बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेटेड होते हैं गाने के लिए. यानी उसमें मूवमेंट बहुत होती है, रेंज बहुत ज़्यादा चेंज होती है, your speed at which your notes are changing is quite high,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and these are songs that are not easy to hum or sing unless you are trained. And so I think what people look back to as kind of classical or semi-classical songs that they respect are these, they are respecting both the sort of lineage कि ये थोड़ा डिफरेंट है, ये कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो हमने सुनी हैं बड़े होते हुए, जो ये थोड़ा नॉर्मल वेस्टर्न गाना नहीं है, और दूसरा इसमें कोई वोकल स्किल है जो हमने पहले, जो हमें आमतौर पे नज़र नहीं आती. सो लॉट ऑफ द
Hmm.
काइंड ऑफ सेमी क्लासिकल सिंगर्स यू मेंशन, मतलब टीना सानी देख लें या नयरा नूर देख लें, दे आर काइंड ऑफ वेरी वेरी केपेबल singers
Yeah,
and their
yeah,
voices are really good, right? So even when they
yeah.
sing simple songs, you can sense that the way that they use their voices is very notable. तो अब
Yeah.
जब हम सिंगर्स को क्लासीफाई करते हैं, अब हमें तो नहीं पता कि क्लासिकल ट्रेनिंग किस लेवल की है सबकी, बट आई थिंक वी आर कमेंटिंग ऑन द कॉन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ ऑल ऑफ दीज फैक्टर्स बीइंग
Huh,
प्रेजेंट,
huh.
लाइक द स्केल, द सॉर्ट ऑफ वोकल स्टाइल, कि वो
Yeah.
किस तरह नोट्स को हिट करते हैं, और दूसरा ये कि वो कितना मुश्किल गाना है गाने को. और अब इस बकेट में कुछ we started naming kind of the women in this group because there's more of them. Shumaila Rahmat Hussain की बात हुई, निर्मला मगानी की बात हुई, Zay Bangash is kind of one of the originals from this generation that is part of it, Aruj Aftab is part of it. जब वो Zau ने भी जो गाना गाया था तलाल के साथ, so even her
Yeah,
music is
we
has a
talked
very
about
kind
that.
of
Yeah,
classical tint to it. Sajad Ali is part of it.
yeah,
Ali
yeah. Of
Sethi
course.
is part of it, right? So these are all people that use this sort of Eastern tint. I mean, you could even extend it as far as Ali Azmat. So when Ali Azmat sings, Ali Azmat does not sing a fully Western style, even though he's singing rock
Yeah,
music. So an
yeah.
example of this is No More. Like when Ali Azmat sings No More, he sings it in a Bollywood way, even though he's singing an English rock song. So, and Ali Azmat, as far as I know, is not classically trained, but even there you
No,
sense this
but
element.
then when you put him even in that Coke Studio Garage Baras with Rahat, he
Huh,
doesn't seem like, because Rahat is doing the Rahat thing, and
huh,
Ali Azmat doesn't seem like out of place in what he's doing. He seems like Haji similar, but like different, but similar.
हाँ.
Um,
मतलब ये ऐसी चीज़ है जैसे आप हसन रहीम को सुनेंगे तो आपको नहीं लगेगा कि वो ईस्टर्न है,
hmm, hmm.
right? Like Hasan Rahim does not fit in that kind of
Yeah,
classical mode. And
yeah.
I don't know if you'd classify it as Western or not, but उसमें वो सारी चीज़ें hit नहीं होती. But in a way, when Manu sings it, which what you call micro आलाप,
I was gonna
हाँ
say
हाँ
Manu. Yeah, yeah.
हाँ, तो मानू के थोड़े से वो tinges आते हैं.
कभी
अब्दुल्ला
कभार,
सिद्दीकी,
हाँ.
हाँ, when
Yeah,
he
the few
sings is
notes
not,
that
I think,
Manu drops
Eastern.
in, yeah, just like, oh shit, this doesn't seem like fully
हाँ
Gora. Yeah.
हाँ, तो अब आई थिंक इसमें एक इंटरेस्टिंग बात यह है कि अब बहुत सारे, पहले तो ये होता था ना कि आप एक कोई घराने से ट्रेन होके निकलते थे,
Mm-hmm,
लाइक द
mm-hmm.
अमाउंट ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट यू वुड नीड टू डू टू गेट टू दिस पॉइंट वाज रियली हाई.
Yeah.
But now we are seeing kind of the emergence of a few people through social media where they get attention through training that they've gotten. Shay Gill was one of them, right?
Right, right.
Nirmal Maghani, I think, is also one of them, where their kind of following is built off of social media. कि आप उनके साथ
Mm.
अब काम वाम करना शुरू करते हैं, like their sort of talent is being found. Like this, and then they build the network and so forth. So इस गाने की इंटरेस्टिंग
Right.
बात ये है कि इसकी म्यूजिक किसने प्रोड्यूस की हुई है? शेरी खटक ऑफ
Oh,
काराकोरम.
काराकोरम थोड़ा देर से पहले जिसका मैंने पूछा था कि यार वो वाले बॉयज कहाँ हैं?
और मैंने कहा लाहौर में. और फिर the video is done by Luke and Zain from
अच्छा,
टकाटक.
right,
ठीक है,
right.
वो सबकी वीडियोस वही करते हैं, लेकिन
हाँ.
वो टकाटक में भी हैं. अच्छा, और वीडियो में जो डांसर हैं वो द फेमस कथक डांसर निगर चौधरी, right? So she's in there,
Oh,
and
okay.
the last few times we have seen her are in one of Rosio's songs,
Yeah. And
and
वो
also
टक
in the Taka Tak song for Velo.
लीलो पे.
So
हाँ,
right, so
हाँ.
it's basically like classical is meeting this whole metal
Yeah.
crew, which I
Yeah.
find very interesting. But it's not a metal song, but it's very
No, no, of
kind of
course.
Western
हाँ.
produced. I think this sort of collaboration has happened in Bollywood quite a bit, right? Like कि Bollywood में is like if you look at A.R. Rahman and the sort of kind of amalgams that he does, where he takes the musical influences from all over the world and then puts the kind of Eastern vocal and a tabla or something kind of in that group. So ये Bollywood में जो sort of progressive फिल्म म्यूजिक है उसमें नज़र आता है. पाकिस्तान में ये हमने उसको एक कैरिकेचर करके बस फ्यूजन म्यूजिक बना दिया था ना, कि हमने बस ईस्ट प्लस वेस्ट वो उसको कोक में हमने कोक स्टूडियो
We've
में
talked
थोड़ा
about
सा
fusion so many times.
जोड़ दिया था वो.
The
इट वाज अ
vibe,
बिग
yeah.
इट वाज अ बिग थीम इन
It was a
पाकिस्तानी
huge
म्यूजिक.
theme. Yeah, yeah.
हाँ, और मतलब एक बैंड था, उसका पूरा नाम ही फ्यूजन था. तो
Ah.
but I think this is now past the point of fusion.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes. This
and
is this is where I would say जहाँ हमने fusion कह दिया in the Pakistani 2000s वाला context, that was perhaps like a hastily applied label and perspective, maybe not fully developed, but it feels like uh, now इस तरह के जो लोग आ रहे हैं, it's very fully formed. It doesn't seem like they're trying something out, right? Which
इसमें ये
even though they
महसूस नहीं
might
होता
be.
कि इसका पॉइंट है कि ईस्ट को और वेस्ट को मिलाना है.
Yeah,
इसमें उनका ये वोकल है, इसमें
exactly.
क्या क्या लगा सकते हैं, एंड
It's like
दे
a
ब्रिंग व्हाट इज
mature
नेचुरल.
thing. Huh,
Yeah,
huh, huh. It's not
the
like in
point
the
of it is
early
not to
R&D stages.
put Eastern and Western influences together and see what happens. The point
Yeah,
is
like that's
to do
not.
something interesting.
Because sometimes that can be the whole point. Okay, Eastern or Western, they can make ऐसा जबरदस्त मिलाया, but they're not even in these songs. That doesn't even seem to be like something that they specifically want to call attention towards.
Right.
Yeah, which is great. So I didn't know. पता नहीं क्यों when I listen to your playlist ना, it's like मेरे दिमाग में I never think कि हाँ वीडियो भी तो होगी इसकी. तो I didn't know कि इसकी भी वीडियो है. So I'll go and
मैं
check.
भी
I
अब
feel
कभी
like
कभार यूट्यूब पे जाके ना जानबूझ के
हाँ.
देखता हूँ कि मतलब there's kind of notable elements in the videos often also that I sometimes miss, but हाँ हम Spotify पे हैं. हमारा
Yeah.
अंकल पना जाहिर होता है.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, I'm living in like the 50s. क्या रेडियो पे सुना था बेटा एक गाना हमने, क्या ही बात है. And that's the end of my thought process. Um, but great, I will investigate. Let me see. Does she have more? She has a few songs. No, this
Yeah.
is recommended. Popular tracks. She does have songs. Oh, Kagaz Ki Kashti. Okay, fine. So there might be some covers. Koyal is there, but oh, acha. So she's been doing this for a while. 2020 tak ja rahe hain releases. Okay, that's very interesting. हम और investigate करेंगे इनको. Was there any other person that I mentioned?
अलीम.
अलीम का एक और गाना, इश्यूज ज़्यादा गाना आ गया था. एंड अलीम के गाने ना, now that I listen to it, I go in being like, I'm gonna find out अब क्या मसला है in Aleem's life. He's and it's not becoming caricature, which is one of the things that I was worried it might be. It's
It's
still like
becoming
in
much more nuanced.
yeah, and in my mind it's like हाँ bro ये इस तरह में music बनता है, and this is like a different zone that this music comes out from, and I need to embrace that, and I do
And
fully.
also, I honestly think he's getting better.
Yeah, yeah,
Which
I
is to
think so.
say, like his chorus singing, like पहले words पे जोर होता था ज़्यादा, right? But like the chorus singing maybe wasn't
हाँ,
not very nuanced or very developed. Ab I get the feeling that the song is just much more polished. The lyrics even are much more dense. The themes change really quickly. Like the
yeah,
sort of stuff he's talking about, he's painting a kind of much denser picture
yeah,
than he used to be.
yeah.
अब वो इतना आसान hook नहीं है जैसे पहले होता था. Now it's
And
like you
जैसे
just have to you can listen to it a few times before you fully understand it.
yeah, and he's working with the same producers because he's part of consistent scene. But जैसे जैसे गाने आ रहे हैं ना, they're also working on so many other things. Like इस पे जोखे है, and there's all these other people who are producing, like we've talked about, like hundreds of songs a year or something. तो वो भी develop होते जा रहे हैं alongside,
In fact,
as
I think
in
that's the
parallel.
part that probably needs to develop a little bit more. Like अगर आप
Okay.
थोड़े Indian top hits गाने सुने, if you look at kind of Diljit or
Hmm.
kind of some of the kind of bigger Indian players, and you look at their production levels, and you look at, for example, Pakistani production levels, I kind of get the
Sure.
feeling that maybe the kind of bigger changes need to happen in production. Like किस तरह के instruments इस्तेमाल हो रहे हैं. Like right now it's very kind of sample based कि samples इकट्ठे हो के बन रहे हैं, but maybe
Yeah.
it needs to become bigger in some way. The kind of changes need to be
I
more
feel like there might be
drastic.
a money slash infrastructure limitation in their
Maybe
case,
I don't buy
because
that
I
very
think
much.
in I don't know if these guys do you know if these guys have like studios, or are they still
Studios
like
नहीं होंगे, but I think they
huh
have the ability to maybe record one instrument. मतलब ठीक है आप orchestra नहीं record कर पाएंगे, but like can you record a single beat या इस तरह कुछ वो थोड़ा है. And I
mm,
think there's also a kind of difference. I think a lot of Pakistani producers are focused on making beats and not on making songs.
sure okay
एंड सो आई थिंक दैट जंप नीड्स टू हैपन. अभी हो रहा है कि जैसे
mm,
उमैर ने बताया था कि वो बीट बना के अंजुम को भेजता है और अंजुम उसके ऊपर रैप कर देता है, राइट? सो ही इज
sure
क्रिएटिंग दीज लाइक इनिशियल बीट्स दैट यू कैन डू अ वर्स ओवर. एंड सो आई थिंक जो हमें इन गानों में भी नजर आता है कि जो कोरस वाला हिस्सा है वो एक थोड़ा बिल्कुल डिस्कनेक्टेड या डिफरेंट चीज होती है, फिर वापस वो उस पर आ जाता है. बट लाइक द काइंड इनिशियल बीट इज व्हाट पीपल आर फोकसिंग ऑन. एंड आई थिंक दैट द जंप दैट I hope producers are able to make now is to go from stitching beats into stitching songs. And the people
हाँ
that are used to stitching the songs are these like old kind of rock musicians, right? जैसे वो um, I think सलोर का गाना था नए मसले जो प्रोड्यूस किया
mm,
था लूक ने, वो टका टक वाला.
mm,
अच्छा अब
mm,
उसने वो that felt like kind of it had sort of complexity and it became kind of full song because I think it came
yeah
from that like rock angle. So
yeah
I think the really interesting thing to be would be कि अच्छा अब ये इन सारे बीट्स को हम फुल गानों की तरफ कैसे लेके जाते हैं जिसमें दो तीन चार डिस्टिंक्ट सेक्शंस हों, थोड़ा उतार चढ़ाव हो, राइट? इट्स नॉट जस्ट अ व्हीकल ऑफ डिलीवरिंग kind of one verse, but that it
yeah
becomes more varied.
क्योंकि the thing that I was thinking ना in terms of वो money and infrastructure thing was कि India में the music scene is like, even outside of Bollywood or even in Bollywood, it's so dense and developed and going back in a consistent manner through multiple decades कि आपके पास ना, apart from having a studio and having the gear, you'll also have the people, like who are skilled in specific instrumentation. They might be playing live a lot, इस तरह के, which I feel, I don't know if these guys, the Karachi rap crew guys, would have ready access to. जैसे लूक ने वो गाना प्रोड्यूस किया, लूक्स इन दैट obviously the metal zone, and he has that relationship with instrumentation वगैरह. Whereas if you're approaching it from a fully, I started making beats in my home thing, and you just get better, and that you get better gear, better samples वगैरह, but and you get more famous. But like if Umair has to turn to, like, does he have like 10 people he can call who
ये बात
are
ठीक है, एंड आई थिंक
musicians?
द अदर थिंग इज़ कि पाकिस्तान में वो सॉर्ट ऑफ इंस्ट्रूमेंटेशन वगैरह का जो एक हिस्ट्री है वो काफ़ी हद तक डिसमेंटल हो गई है,
Yeah,
स्पेशली लोकल इंस्ट्रूमेंटेशन। यानी आपको वायलिन
yeah,
प्लेयर कितनी आसानी से मिलेगा, आपको तबला प्लेयर कितनी आसानी से मिलेगा, आपको
yeah,
सितार बजाने वाले कितने मिलेंगे। यानी हम भी
exactly.
इवन फॉलोइंग द इंडस्ट्री वी कैन ओनली नेम अ फ्यू पीपल probably that can do it, but I think in India um,
It's a very common
uh,
thing.
and the training and growing up to learn this sort of
Yes.
stuff is much more
Yeah.
common. Even in diaspora audiences you can see
Yeah.
ke,
Yeah.
matlab, sort of Indian dance forms or Indian kind of musical
Yeah.
forms are much more prominent than they are in Pakistani
Huh.
diaspora. तो ये
Huh.
बात ठीक है कि आपको इतनी म्यूजिकल नॉलेज इन सॉर्ट ऑफ एम्बियंट स्पेस मिलेगी नहीं, आपको बहुत ढूंढनी पड़ेगी, वही 3-4 लोग होंगे जिनको आप खींचेंगे।
Yeah. Yeah. Like
ये
that
बात
Coke
ठीक है।
Studio wala jo wo tha phir milenge, and then they had the big violent section of the people. I felt so sad when I saw that because I was like, they were all so old. I'm like, matlab, और कोई नहीं है, that this is it. What happens when these guys retire or eventually like pass away or something, like a couple decades, khatam. We have nobody. That whole troop of skilled people, that whole thing is like decimated. So I think that might be folk singers हमें शायद मिल जाएंगे, but those we'll find in like folk communities. The what is the connection between them and the mainstream music circles that these guys roam around in? जब वो boiler room हुआ था, we had some folk artists, but उनमें भी I got the vibe कि उनको जाके ढूंढा गया था and बुलाया गया था. They're not just people that हाँ जी everybody knows और अब हमने दुनिया को भी दिखा दिया boiler room के through. तो I think that might be the gap. लेकिन in the Aleem context, I feel these guys, Jesse Aleem ke lyricism and his own, I suppose, comfort and confidence in experimenting is evolving. To that extent, I feel Ye Jokhay and Umair and all these people, they are also getting better. They might not be diversifying or expanding in a way, but like the polish is increasing, at
हाँ,
least.
और फिर आई गेस फिर ये इसलिए कोक स्टूडियो रेलिवेंट होती है ना इन लोगों के लिए, क्योंकि ये वाले लोग फिर इनको कोक स्टूडियो पे जाके मिलेंगे।
Yeah.
यानी
Yeah,
कि आपको
hopefully.
जो आपको चाहिए कि एक आपको एक सितार प्लेयर या तबला प्लेयर या कुछ शहनाई वाला मिले, वो आपको कोक स्टूडियो पे मिलेगा, एंड दैट्स वेयर द
Yeah.
कनेक्शंस आर मेड। सो मे बी इन अ वे दैट्स रेलेवेंट, सो आई सी योर आर्गुमेंट।
हाँ. But nahin, definitely, I think the next step for them will be because my favorite Jay Z Timberland example. Uh, Lots of samples from chalo globally, Arabic music, Desi music, local, khudi self-produced. But then कोई crazy drummer भी आ जाता है उनके पास, or they have like some crazy unexpected guitar player भी आ जाता है, someone who's great on keyboards वो भी आ जाता है. So when these guys find those people, perhaps internationally, um, so I think that'll be a big leap forward for the quality of their music. But yeah. Anybody else who you want to specifically shout out? I feel like we're running close to your time ka end. Yasin Jawad
नहीं,
song on
आई थिंक वी
this.
कवर्ड एवरीबॉडी दैट आई वांटेड टू कवर।
ठीक है, ठीक है. Another shout out again to Shumaila. Lots of religious theme music. Given the Mausam Allahu, two songs named Allahu. Zain Zohaib also in there. No Reconcile is also a good song. Um, Asim Asar, I don't know why I'm never ready for an Asim Asar song, in the sense that I always recognize his voice. Kind of like, who's this guy? Like, oh yeah, it's Asim Asar. But somehow next time I'm like, who's this guy? Asim Asar song also on here. Yeah, great. I think I was concerned about us possibly having enough songs to talk about in a Ramadan episode,
मैंने
but
सोचा था कि पहले इस प्लेलिस्ट को फिर पोस्ट ईद ही कर लें, फिर मुझे ख्याल आया कि इतने गाने होंगे कि पोस्ट ईद में फिर 60 गाने निकलेंगे,
I
सो
think
इन
that's
अ
what
वे।
you said last time कि
हाँ,
हम ना रमजान में करेंगे कोई नहीं आएगा, and then when we get around to doing it, there's going to be ईद के बाद सबका release bomb फटेगा, and
हाँ,
then we'll be
तो ये
swamped.
गाने अगर मैंने रोक लिए होते अप्रैल की प्लेलिस्ट के लिए, तो फिर अप्रैल की प्लेलिस्ट जो है ना वो 3 सफ़ों की होती। सो
Yeah, yeah. But khair, that's the episode. Thanks for listening, watching, viewing. Follow the playlist. सारे आप artists को tag करें, उनसे कहें हमने उनके बारे में कितनी अच्छी अच्छी बातें की हैं. That's been doing really well for us recently. So you get part of it. and we'll see you next time, next week, month, whenever. Okay. All right.